Hey everyone, 10 here. Back to the book. We're going to talk about ditching your diet. All right. One interesting thing to experiment with as you go about embracing healthy deviance is simply letting go of some of the things you felt you had to do in order to be healthy. Dieting is one of those things. So this is super crazy to me because we hear this all the time about a diet. I literally think what is said in this book is probably one of the best ways to explain it, but also common sense. Um, I don't know. You guys listen and then tell me. Look, we can debate the merits of this or that diet. We can argue about study results, but it's important to remember that self-reported dietary data, the kind employed by most diet researchers, is notoriously unreliable. And studies done in clinical labs often have little to do with real-world conditions. All of that makes the large-scale, accurate tracking of what works and doesn't work in the realm of diet and nutrition close to impossible. Mostly what the scientific literature shows is that the way people eat when they go on any kind of diet tends to rapidly regress into a form of eating quite similar to how they were eating before they went on that diet. As a result, many researchers have come to realize that most diets work about as well as most other diets. So what does that mean? They're all the same. Right? It doesn't matter if you're keto. It doesn't matter if you're paleo. It doesn't matter if you're doing macros, which I have something to tell you guys about macros too, because we talk about a lot about macros. Um, but this is not necessarily. So there's strong evidence that fat-free diets, for example, are particularly disastrous. But what's clear is that out in the wild of the real world, no diet works very well for very long. In fact, a comprehensive review of long-term dietary data conducted by a research team at UCLA suggests that all restrictive diets eventually fail and or backfire, often leading subjects to gain back the weight they have lost and then some. So I'm going to read that for you again, okay? A research team at UCLA suggests that all restrictive diet, all of them, eventually fail and or backfire, often leading subjects to gain back the weight they have lost and then some. If you guys follow anything that we say, Daisy has been saying this when we're talking about weight loss medication. We talk about this all the time, okay? Restrictive diets, they're all restrictive. We're not trying to restrict you from anything. So this is interesting that it's in this book. This has led the lead author of that review, Tracy Mann, PhD, to conclude that most people would be far better off avoiding diets entirely. So no more dieting, people. All right. And I agree. For more on that, see Mann's book. She has a book that's out. Okay. Interestingly, what does seem to work for most people over the long haul is by far the least tested, least restricted, and least commercially hyped of all dietary approaches. It is not a diet at all. It's simply eating mostly real, whole, nutrient-dense foods and avoiding crappy, processed, addictive, inflammatory food-like products high in flour, sugars, oils, salt, and toxic additives. There are some exciting new science to support this. This is research that was reported by the New York Times in February of 2018, actually. So if anyone who has ever been on a diet knows that the standard prescription for weight loss is to reduce the amount of calories that you consume. But a new study published Tuesday may turn that advice on its head. It found that people who cut back on added sugar, refined grains, and highly processed food while concentrating on eating plenty of vegetables and whole foods without worrying about counting calories or limiting portion sizes lost significant amount of weight over the course of a year. Wow. I'm like, this is not rocket science, people. This is common sense, right? We've been telling everybody this, but those diets, that's what we go to, right? The strategy worked for people whether they followed diets that were mostly low in fat and mostly low in carbs, and their success did not appear to be influenced by their genetics or their insulin response to carbohydrates, a finding that cast doubt on the increasingly popular idea that different diets should be recommended to people based on their DNA makeup or on their tolerance for carbs or fat. The research leads strong to support the notion that diet quality, not quantity, is what helps people lose and manage their weight most easily in the long run. It also suggests that health authorities should shift away from telling the public to obsess over calories and instead encourage Americans to avoid processed foods that are made with refined sugars and added sugars like bagels, white bread, refined flour, and sugary snacks and beverages. This is the roadmap to reducing the obesity epidemic in the United States, says Dr. Mozaffarian, who is not involved in the new study. It's time for the U.S. and other national policies to stop focusing on calories and calorie counting. Wow, what a big statement. Let's see. This says here, sadly, our country's nutrition dogma and policies have so far changed very little as a result of the study referenced above. The counsel of most doctors and registered dietitians and the advice in most popular health and fitness magazines remain shockingly focused on calories. It will probably take decades more for these findings to hold in a way that is highly visible to the health-seeking public. Why is this? Because most experts have been brainwashed and peer pressured into calorie-centric thinking, and because diets sell, and because processed foods, including diet foods, are hugely profitable, and because focusing on food quality versus quantity runs entirely counter to what all of us have been aggressively and repeatedly told to do for more than 60 years. Just look at the way our nutrition facts label is designed. Calories in bold. Carbs and fat grams are listed along with all sorts of other complex information that is largely useless and irrelevant, but that demand our attention. The ingredient list, meanwhile, is small, innocuous, and often hard to find. We are not trained in how to interpret it, and we've not been trained to particularly care what it says. Whole foods, meanwhile, have no ingredient labels at all. Raw meats and vegetables are intimidating to most people. We don't know how to deal with that, and haven't eaten a lot of processed food. We simply don't find them nearly as palatable as a carefully architected combinations of sugar, flour, salt, fat, and flavorings that have been laboratory designed and tested to ensure that we cannot stop eating them. The problem, of course, is that in a world that makes crappy processed food cheap, convenient, heavily advertised, seductively packaged, and biologically addictive, and that actively promotes diets as the way to be healthy and slender, choosing to eat mostly whole foods in a non-diet way is an unpopular, uncommon, and challenging thing to do, at least initially. You know what makes it easier? Not trying to do anything else. Not counting calories, not counting carbs, proteins, or fats, not trying to eat specific quantities and ratios of things, not trying to track every scrap you eat, not trying to burn off every calorie you eat by spending a specific quantity of time, going to a specific speed at a specific elevation on a treadmill at the gym. What makes it easier is just eating the whole foods that appeal to you and learning to choose, prepare, and combine them in ways that you genuinely enjoy. So guess what? Ditch the diet. That's pretty awesome, right? Um, Literally, I read that and I was like, as much as me and Daisy talk about this, about eating and what you're fueling your body with, and we tell you about that it's consistency. We tell you that you shouldn't be on a diet, right? This is a lifestyle. We're trying to say these same things. And I just think that this author said it much better than what me and Daisy do. But honestly, I don't think that dieting, I think dieting, it gets with our mental, uh, and we worry about that, counting calories, counting carbs, counting our steps. Oh, I need to work out for 2 hours. I need to walk 4 miles. I need to only eat this amount. What if we intuitively eat? What if we eat to when our body's full? Again, just food for thought for you all. Because again, this has definitely made me think, and how myself and Daisy, how we approach some people. And when they tell us that they are doing all the things and they're dieting or they're eating only one meal and they're not fueling their bodies, um, really interesting. So let us know what you think as we share more of this. Um, and hopefully you guys drop some comments, let us know so we can continue on with this if you guys would like. Otherwise, we'll talk to you soon. Bye.